Hi, I'm Jill at the American Academy of Facial Aesthetics. Today we're going to review our polydioxanone smooth threads and lifting threads that we use here at the AAFE. So just as a brief overview, polydioxanone, also known as PDO, is a suture-like material that has been used in surgeries for forever. For example, when you have your tooth pulled, they use dissolvable sutures, or another example might be a C-section, we use dissolvable sutures. In the aesthetic world, we use threads for a couple of different purposes. One is to stimulate collagen production, and then the other is for lifting properties. So there are lifting threads and there are smooth threads. So the lifting threads lift, hence lifting threads. And those we use for those non-operative facelifts that patients are coming and asking for. The smooth threads have a variety of different purposes. For example, you can use them in necklace lines in the neck or deep glabellar wrinkles here. You can use them for cheek volume, around the vermilion borders in the lips. So the smooth threads have a lot of different purposes that we use them for, and we're going to break down each thread and discuss when it's best used, which indication we like to use it for. So come on in, and we're going to start off with the 29x30. So this is our 29x30 smooth PDO thread. This is sort of your workhorse for smooth threads. So when we're talking measurements, there's 29x30. That means 29 gauge is the gauge of the needle. 30 millimeters is the length. So you almost can't even see it. The thread is loaded onto this needle. It's very, very small, almost like the size of a hair. And then this little foam plunget is holding the thread in place. So this is best used for in the vermilion borders of the lip, and then we also use it basically all over the face and body. It's great for acne scarring, treating acne scars. We like to lay them sort of cross-directional or making, that hatch pattern. You're thinking about laying this like mesh, this structure under the skin where the collagen will replace where we placed the thread. So the 29x30, like I said, is sort of your workhorse for smooth threads. Another 29x30 smooth thread option that we have is your 29x30 mini thread. So these mini threads are awesome to use in the Cupid's bow. So we will use generally your 29x30s for the actual vermilion border. But if you use a 29x30 mini thread into the Cupid's bow, such as this way and this way, it really helps create that defined peak, and it's really, really pretty. Another area where you could use a mini thread might be in a scar. So for example, if a patient has a scar on their face, maybe they've had a mole removed, and they have a remaining scar, you can take a couple of mini smooth threads and, again, create that meshwork, think of this meshwork under the skin, and place a couple of mini smooth threads, and that can be a really good option for your mini smooth threads. So moving up would be 29x40. So as we discussed, 29 is the gauge of the needle, 40 millimeters is the length. So these are great also for the face. So for example, if you're treating acne scars along the cheek where you have more room to work with, imagine the 40 millimeter you have more length. So you'll just have to use it in an area where you have more distance. So you can use them in the cheeks. They're great for necklace lines if you can get a nice long stretch for the 40 millimeters. And they're also really great for the submental area. Also, the 29x30s are great for the submental area, but it depends on the patient and how much area of tissue that you're treating. So if they have a very short chin, you might not be able to fit in a 29x40. So again, these are great for cheeks, necklace lines, submental area. They're also great if you're treating body. You can use them on the backs of the arms to treat the crepey skin on the backs of the arms. The décolleté, you can use them to really help stimulate that collagen production and give your skin that plump firmness that everybody wants. Alright, so again, we're sort of going up in length here. So now we're at 29x50. And the 29x50 is again a 29 gauge needle, 50 millimeters in length. So again, think here of your working space. So if you can fit a 50 millimeter into the cheek, then you can absolutely use it in the cheek. This is definitely going to be harder to fit into a submental area or necklace lines just based on the curvature of the neck. But this would be great for an area in the cheek that you're treating, and also body. So again, the crepey skin on the backs of the arms, or perhaps in the abdomen if you're really trying to tighten that tissue around the belly button, the umbilicus, then you can go ahead and use your threads around the belly button, and that will stimulate collagen production and tighten that skin. So now we're changing gauges. So this is a 27 gauge by 60 millimeters. So this is pretty long. And this is going to be perfect for the tummy. If you're trying to tighten the tummy or any other tissue really that you're trying to tighten on the body, this 60 millimeters is going to be hard to fit on the face or the neck. So I would recommend this more for body treatments. And your gauge is going to be a little bit bigger, so just keep that in mind. So if you have a larger surface area, such as the belly, this would be perfect. And the final smooth thread that we're going to discuss is called the twisted thread. So this is a 29 by 40. So we're still working with a 29 gauge needle, 40 millimeters in length. And the reason this is different is the thread is actually twisted around the needle. So these do require a little bit more oomph when you're placing them. You really have to give it a little bit more of a push when you're placing it because you're going against the resistance of that twisted thread. This is going to be perfect when you're really looking for an area that really is going to require a lot of collagen production. So for example, really severe acne scars. If you're treating severe acne scars on the sides of the face, the twisted thread is really going to help subsize or break up that scar tissue as you advance your thread in. So I would use this in scar tissue, or I would use it in a very deep set wrinkle. For example, a 50-year-old female who's just starting to use Botox and has very deep set glabellar wrinkles. As we know, Botox is generally not going to resolve those wrinkles completely, especially not with your first treatment. So you might want to consider doing smooth threads to help stimulate that collagen production in that area. And these deep wrinkles in the 11s, this would be a great place to use that as well. You can use them in necklace lines again. You can also use them in the submental area. But the twisted thread is really going to be for where you're really trying to break up that tissue and then really stimulate that collagen production. So now we're moving on to our lifting threads. So the lifting threads are different from the smooth threads. First of all, the length. And we use these to help lift tissue. As we know, as we get older, as we age, our face, basically the fat pads in our face start to thin and just sort of descend downwards. We lose bone structure, our muscles atrophy, and so everything sort of just with gravity starts to migrate downwards. And so sometimes you just really need that opportunity to lift things back to where they should be. So that's where your lifting threads come in. So these are different in that obviously they are longer. And we have a couple of different lifting threads. The first, this is called an ARTE, A-R-T-E, and it is a 19 gauge needle by 100 millimeters in length. So this is actually a blunt shaped or an L-shaped cannula. So once you're able to get closer, you'll see one of the edges is sharp, but the tip is actually blunt. Okay, so in general, I do not recommend this for new injectors who are new to lifting threads. When you're new to lifting threads, you really do need that sharp needle in order to sort of get through that tissue. Once you really get the technique down, you feel more comfortable with the blunt tip. So the difference between your ARTE threads and the next thread I'm going to talk about is this is going to be the strongest thread possible. So the way that it is manufactured, there are small little triangles engineered into the thread. So once we place the thread and lift the tissue, those little sharp triangles will catch the tissue and lift up. So this is going to be the strongest thread, and I would use this in somebody who has very heavy tissue. Think of your patient who's lost 100 pounds. They have more tissue than, maybe a 40-year-old patient who's just doing lifting threads for sort of like a pre-rejuvenation. So a very heavy tissue that's going to need as much support as you can give it, you're going to use an RT thread, a molded thread. So again, those triangles are molded into the thread, and that's what makes it so strong. So moving on to our next lifting thread is the same gauge, same dimensions, 19 gauge by 100, but it is, these are your barb stars. So basically, these barbs, think of them as being laser cut into the thread. So while it's strong and it lifts tissue, it's not as strong as your arty or your molded thread because the integrity of the thread has been altered slightly by them cutting the barbs into the tissue. So that's why this thread is not as strong. And the other difference is this is a sharp needle. So this is the best for new injectors or injectors who are new to placing lifting threads. This will be the easiest for you to place. Next is going to be, again, a barb star thread. It is 19 gauge by 90 millimeters. So it is shorter in length, still has that sharp tip. This would be great for maybe a jawline where you don't have as far to go. Your 19 by 100 is going to be best. Think of your marionette, nasolabial fold, and your entry point is here. So sometimes 90 millimeters is not going to be long enough for you to reach those distal points. But for a jawline or, for example, a neck thread, the 90 is a great length for that because you're not going as far. Okay, so thanks for watching. I hope you've learned a little bit about threads, and we look forward to seeing you in a PDO lifting threads or smooth threads course soon.